can you spot an AI generated text? You know the feeling. You open a website, you open some kind of like post or listing, you start reading, and then you're like, I don't really understand this. This is like generic, just lacks any kind of like character, a personality, and then you're like, oh, this is probably um, written by AI. Maybe you notice the structure of formatting of the text, and sounds just like ChatGPT. Now, what you notice when this happens is um, lack of information, lack of clarity. Because when we use text, we are trying to communicate something. And the thing that the problem that I see people having is like they use AI text to produce text that looks good, but because they don't understand how communication works and how other people on the receiving end will understand that and receive what is the main thing that they should receive and how they would understand that, they think that this is a great text. For example, practical example, I've been looking for like listings of businesses for sale online. And really often, especially when looking for some smaller like smaller businesses, especially there's some digital businesses. So the owner who has put the listing is like the the core audience of who would use AI and knows how to use AI tools. Um, and you can immediately see it from the formatting, like formatting and the first couple of sentences, like made with AI. And the problem here is like when I open the the business for sale listing, I want to figure out like, am I interested in this business? I want to understand what they are selling, what's the business about, so I can figure out like, am I interested? And if I'm interested, I try to figure out like, what is the business about, so I can ask good further questions, or I can figure out like, is this something that I would be actually interested enough to message the seller? So now, what probably has happened is that the seller has given ChatGPT a prompt. They have put there, what the business is about, the main numbers, some key main information, and then the ChatGPT has written a really nice looking and like you know text listing, sales listing, like, hey, here's the business. You read it, it sounds all good. It's like, but then I realized like I don't learn anything about the business. It's fancy, it's a good text, and it's saying all the right things, but I don't understand anything more about the business. And then I have this feeling like if that person would have just put that short prompt of the main key numbers and points of the business that I could just read, example, a bullet point list, I could really quickly get the main things about the business. What's the revenue? What's the profit? What's the product? What's the sales channels? How old is the business? Who is the customer? Just some basic things. Um, and this creates this funny situation where like using AI actually creates more noise and makes it harder for people to understand what you are communicating and you are trying to get through. It makes things look good. It helps you create a lot of text really fast, but the core essence is usually lacking. Um, and I think this will probably increase the how do you say the divide or the gap between people who can communicate, who can put together good text, and who can, example, prompt AI well, or who will prompt something or create something with AI, proofread it, and change it. Um, and those people who just say things but have no clue how to communicate or any clue of like how the person on the receiving end will understand that. So example in this, I think this is a good practical example. When I'm looking for the business that is on sale, there will be some challenges. Now the seller will be using maybe some words that I might not fully understand. They might say that, okay, this product uses this DNA PCR technology or something. I'm like, I don't really understand what this thing is. Or we have a lot of terminology that are really wide, and it depends a lot of also on the context, like what it actually means. And then when you add AI here, who adds a lot of fluff words, and the AI who doesn't understand the specifics, it cannot figure out like how to specifically communicate this, how to structure the message in a way that it really makes sense and gets the right points across to the reader or the receiver. Um, and when you are communicating, it's really important to think about like who's on the receiving end, how much do they understand about the context or the topic, and what terminology they understand and not understand, what terminology should be uh, like not just mentioning a word like DNA, but writing one or two more sentences to explain what it is, or need to define what it means in this context. And also the order of things many times matters. It might be that there is all the right information in the listing, but figuring out like understanding in what order to give that information, that it builds information like, you know, building a building. It matters in what order you put things together to get a house. You could put everything, uh, all the right materials into a thing, but suddenly you have roof is in the ceiling and you have staircase on the roof, and it's like, you know, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't work. um, so the key point for you to take from this is like, um, don't even when you use AI, um, do not just take the text itself, read it and figure out and this is really good to take yourself into the step of like, okay, who will be receiving this message, put yourself to their shoes, read through the text and be like, do I understand all the words that are said? Is is everything laid into order where I can build more understanding piece by piece? And then one good in editing example, AI text is like, and in any text, your own production first draft example is to think like, what can I take away from this text to make it better? Fluff words, too complex sentence, whole paragraph. um, what are the terminology or things that are too complex and I should find a simpler terminology or words to use? What are things where it's like, okay, I need to make sure that the reader understands this and I cannot assume that they know what DNA is. So let me write one or two more sentences here to explain it. So when I'm using AI to generate text, what I've noticed that works usually the best is like, I write the first rough draft of what I want to convey. I don't care about the grammar or spelling. I'm just like doing rough first draft of like just putting it out. Then I ask AI to make draft, and I also tell a little bit like what is the context where the thing will be shown, who will be, you know, the one receiving it, and so on. So they know the audience. AI creates the text. So now it's much more personal also because I've given enough input for AI, and then I will read it through and I will ask AI to explain more about things that where I think like something needs to be explained. Example, a terminology needs to be expanded upon. I ask it to simplify certain things if I know this, like too complex sentence, too complex word here. Can you find like a simpler word for this? And then when I edit, I usually delete some parts. It might be whole paragraph, whole sentence, part of a sentence, then there might be some parts where I'm like, okay, the AI is not really getting this, so I'm gonna go and manually edit uh, this three sentences here to make it much easier. And when I use AI, I get the best results when I'm really using it as another brain of helping me produce text, not as the AI itself writing it. So I make a draft, it puts it into good format and expands on some things, and in some scenarios it might add something that I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. Didn't come to my mind to mention this thing about this topic, and then asking it to do specific modifications. delete this, add this thing, change here, simplify this. And then I'm like, okay, quite good text. It took me 15 minutes to make, whereas it would have taken at least 45 minutes for me to do when I do first draft. Then I write it like with cool details and format. I have to change the format. I reread it. I get stuck in my head. I don't have the another brain or intelligence to throw back and forth things. And then I probably need to let it sit at least for hours or overnight to come with fresh brain to look at it and to edit it. But when I'm doing this with AI, I feel like I can get in one sitting to a really good like text and output. Whereas previously I would probably need to like let it sit at least for one night for me to come back with the fresh pair of eyes and fresh brain to finalize the text into a good form. Yeah, good stuff.